A lot of things have changed, and speaking with my friend Michael over this issue of parental alienation and the real changes in relationships that is taking place in this country is really crazy. Especially now, more than ever, there are more divorces as a result of this pandemic, and people are going through what they're going through. But one thing I wanted to share with you, as you were watching in the first video that I had to cut short, obviously working from home, is the fact that like never before, women have been enabled and strengthened and really fortified to more rights than ever before. What do I mean by more rights? Any issue that deals with women in the divorce process automatically gets heard 10 times more than a father that is going through literal hell to try to regain custody. There are so many obstacles. This is why I feel so much for Michael, because I've been through it, and it's terrible. You come out there with a bad reputation, because usually the ex will begin a campaign of destruction of the image of the father in front of the children, which is all part of the parental alienation. And I put up some link there so that way you can take a look at what psychologists say about this. But I want you to imagine, put yourself in the shoe of a parent, a father, child abuse, or accused of domestic violence, accused of things that never did, and try to prove your innocence before a court, before the family and children, with all types of allegations, and coerce the children into testifying to that extreme. Oh, tell the reporter or social worker that he did this and this to you. If you haven't lived that, you have no idea what many fathers go through just to try to retain and keep their custody. I've heard horror stories, even from New York, from fathers having their children yanked because the mother, and we're talking about Jewish families. We're not talking outside the Jewish faith here. We're talking about among our own mishpacha, the horrendous trials and problems that they go through just to try to retain their children, just to try to have somewhat, give them somewhat a decent and peaceful existence. Never happens. Never happens. As a matter of fact, I think the rabbis and the leaders today need to take a serious look into this dynamic of how women are manipulating the situation in order to control the children in such situations. In my case in particular, Michael, I'll be honest with you, I gave up custody because to fight for the custody, I had to have at least a good $50,000 to $100,000 to be able to pay a high-powered attorney like my ex had, which was subsidized by the community which goes to. I won't say what community she goes to. It's not important. The issue is you have leaders that basically try to bring both parties in to try to bring some type of amicable settlement. Instead, they feed the fire and the flames. And then you wonder that what we're going through the world in this pandemic. You wonder why God shuts us down, why He shuts the community down. Obviously, you look at it from that perspective and you say, oh, that's why. But parental alienation is something that affects not only Jews but also non-Jews as well. Many of my friends that have gone through this divorce process has expressed the same similar situation. No, my ex tried to get me for X amount of child support, alimony, and a whole bunch of other things. I knew a guy who used to be a millionaire, used to live in Surfside. This gentleman basically had everything at his hands. The community loved him until, listen to this, until he went through a divorce. The wife stayed with a $1 million condominium right off the beach, while he had to end up paying on a monthly basis approximately $5,000 a month per child. So he ended up about $10,000 a month in child support. And he was a millionaire. He lost it all as a result of his divorce. He lost his business. He lost his reputation. He lost his standing in the community. He lost everything. And to add to that, he got hit. Oh, he was a very violent man, domestic violence. These were the accusations he had to face in court in order to have shared custody, retain shared custody. My friends, parental alienation is not only something that you see occasionally, it's something that you're seeing now more frequently, more because the women, which are the majority who filed for the divorce, have been empowered by the current system. It's not an equal access program. So if you don't have the money to defend yourself, if you don't have the ability to financially succumb, or but rather yet defend your point of view, you will be destroyed by the system. And unfortunately, no one is hearing the claim. There's a couple of organizations like out there in Dallas, and one that I posted up, that have said, look, we are encountering on a daily basis many fathers having the same problem that you had. And believe me, I tried to raise funds and money, and it was an impossibility, because if you're not in the in-group, if you're not into that community that, will help you, and of course, most of my messages have always been controversial. Anyhow, nevertheless, you are in the, you might say, the end of the feeding and supporting system. You've got to really be up there. And I know how the communities work. And unfortunately, I was on the wrong side of the community's edge. If you're not for a particular movement, I won't mention that either. You'll face the wrath of the leaders. And by the real leaders, I mean those who basically manipulate the money, who controls the money, and who controls the hearing of the money. And unfortunately, I am not going to give up what I believe to be true for the sake of this. And even at that case, looking at everything I went through, Michael, and what you're going through, I really feel for you, because it's not easy, especially in Israel. I don't know how the laws are over there, but what you're telling me is very similar than here, that you have to prove your innocence. And unfortunately, we just went through the legal system, watching this thing on trial, and seen how mob rules is a very powerful influence in the legal system. Dershowitz just said that basically this case could be overturned, what we're watching, because of the political and mob mentality. And see, we have that type of mentality with the parental alienation. And if you get a person who is really into women's right as a judge, you're in trouble. And unfortunately, I had a Cuban woman who was my judge at the federal courthouse, and I from day one, I felt wasn't being treated fairly. I was being run over with an attorney that basically was not paid very much, but was willing to at least defend me. I got away unscathed. I could have ended up in jail. And they don't care. The woman doesn't care. The community doesn't give a darn. And then you feel that you're completely isolated, completely separated, completely destroyed, and you go, well, what's the use? This is the process of denigration to the parent, how much more so the children. And then the other parent, usually the mother, begins to work on the children to be able to encourage them to testify against you in the courthouse, to try to make sure they can put you to jail for any allegations. It's not true. I can just say the following. I basically said, I get my custody not because I wanted to, but because I was forced in such a position that financially I couldn't afford the attorney anymore. You go to the point that you're at the breaking point. I was there. So parental alienation is a big problem in this country, major problem, and it's completely ignored because of the other side which is the child abuse and the domestic violence abuse, which comes constantly, pops its ugly head to counteract any efforts to try to support the parent, the male parent. Who loses in all of this? I'll tell you who loses in all of this. Who loses in all of this is the child that's involved. And this is an evil thing, and this is why I emphasize a passage that's in Proverbs, that it says that a wise woman, and I hope this will be of encouragement to you, Michael, a wise woman, it says in Proverbs, in Mishle, builds her home. This is the woman that, regardless of what happens, her home is the most important thing in her life. But when a woman doesn't build her home, even after the fact of a divorce, and keeps on destroying it, she begins to destroy it piece by piece. First the man, the husband in the relationship, then the children, that goes either way, and then she is the centerpiece of her own existence. And this is why I believe very strongly that parental alienation needs to be an issue brought up on a national platform, perhaps on a global platform, that this has to stop. It's destroying the bread earner, it's destroying the peace of mind of the father in the family. And this is what's destroying, by the way, the black community specifically. You can speak to many black fathers who have to go through the system and find themselves having to pay child support, having to pay for everything, and they encourage the now new single mother not to get remarried again, but to keep single and not to allow the ex to come back home because they can lose all the benefits if they're back home. So we're creating this problem. We're feeding this problem. And the people that get hurt are the children. They are now perhaps teenagers, but when they grow up, the whole hell they go through in their heads is so great that not even religion can heal them. Not even the thing that they learned in the yeshiva can bring them to a peace of mind. Because they're, in all sense and purposes, they're effed up, if you understand what I'm saying, without saying bad words. But they're screwed in the head. They're completely our future, and we've screwed up our future by doing this to them. This is why I hold so strongly to what it says in Proverbs. And it's something that women need to learn to stop doing to their ex. Stop doing to the fathers of the family. Because after all, they were your husband. They were the ones that basically brought these children into your life so that both of you would nourish them and bring them up. But no, you have to be selfish. You have to destroy everything around you, including your own children, because for you it's more important to destroy the home, to destroy the marriage, to destroy every inside out that has to do with the father of those children that you brought into this world. So we are screwed up, my friends. And until we address this issue from both a religious, moral, and legal side of parental alienation, I don't see a resolution. Meanwhile, community leaders continue to ignore the problem that face many, many Jewish fathers, that they find themselves right there being at the point of despair and saying, you know what, forget all of this. I'll become irreligious. It's happening, my friends. Don't ignore it anymore. We need to face this issue. Some people will even say, you know what, I might as well take up being gay. Or I might as well take up being single and no longer marry again. Everything contrary, obviously, to Torah teachings. But understand, it's not an easy life when you're completely trampled under by the ex and by the system of the court systems that make you feel like garbage, that makes you feel like it's completely impossible. And then you contact a community leader that your ex is involved in, and their image of you is completely the worst in the world, because that person was able to destroy the good reputation you had once, and it's now on the ground. This is part and parcel of parental alienation. Please look up parental alienation yourself, and whatever help you can get, that'd be great. I put down an incredible link to an organization that is looking for funding because it needs funding to be able to help and support and defend. Obviously, it's nothing like the funding that you'll see that's received by a lot of organizations that saves children of abuse and child abuse cases. No, you won't find it there, because the help that parental alienation fathers figures get is little to nothing. I know. I went through it, and it was horrendous. And I'll tell you right now, the legal system is only justice by money. If you don't have money, you are in for a treat of your life. And unfortunately, those who help support these women that basically destroy the home, that destroys the cycle, the viciousness in which they do so, is only helping to perpetuate completely screwed up children. So parental alienation has consequences, psychologically, emotionally, in all sense. But I want you to have a taste, to be accused of something you didn't do, and then be run throughout the whole entire community as if you were guilty of such a crime. It's not easy, my friend. I thank God I survived. But be honest with you, I don't think I would want to repeat that again ever.